Hello everyone, and welcome to a new series of videos. They'll be all located in a folder on my channel, and this is all for the TEAS 5 test, which is an entrance exam for nursing students. And today, this first video topic, we're going to start off with levels of organization. So what are levels of organization? So what we're dealing with is in life, in living things, in biology, in life sciences, we deal with levels that are non-living and levels that are living, and we branch these out and begin to look at things because non-living things are made up, living things are made up of non-living material. So what we want to do is start off just kind of at first giving an idea about this, a description of these levels of organization, and start off by looking at them. There are 14 in a general biology 1 class that you would generally expect to be known. In anatomy and physiology, we stop at 10, but let's take it, guys, at the full-on 14 levels. And we're going to start off with things like subatomic particles. Now, what we mean by subatomic particles, let's break that down. Subatomic. That means it's smaller than the atom. We're thinking about things like protons, neutrons, and electrons, right? The fundamental particles that make up our atoms. So subatomic particles we know are not alive. Protons, neutrons, and electrons are the fundamental things that make up our atoms. So if we were to go up by a level, we would see atoms, or we could just refer to this as the atomic level. And this is by far the smallest unit of matter, right? This is what is making up all living things and all non-living things. So this would be the smallest stable unit of matter that is discernible, that has the properties of matter, but as you can see, they are composed of subatomic particles. Now, if I were to take these guys and then bond some atoms together, I can make the chemical level, chemical compounds, we might call these, or also molecules, right? Molecular level. Now, this is 2 or more atoms bonded together. Now, there are ways to discern compounds from molecules. We'll talk about that later in another video. But what we're doing here is we are taking 2 more atoms and we're bonding them together. For example, if I took a sodium atom, bound that to a chloride atom, and produced sodium chloride, right? Or a carbon atom bonded to O2 to make CO2, right? These would be molecular. We have 2 or more atoms bonded together, right? Now, let's say I take some chemicals and I bond those together. I can make very large molecules called macromolecules. Now, it's important to discern them as different because oftentimes they are made up of multiple molecules. We might take these large molecules like proteins and add 1 amino acid, for example, 1 amino acid, which in its own is a chemical, and add another amino acid, right, which on its own is another chemical, to make a dipeptide, begin to make a small protein, right? And then let's stop on the 5th one on this page, and we'll go back, and we'll see that macromolecules can assemble to make our organelles. Now, for example, organelles might contain lipids, which are a type of macromolecule. They also might contain some proteins, like the various enzymes that are in them, etc. They might contain some DNA inside there, and every one of these are types of macromolecules, right? So what we see is they are composed of things above them. Now, all of these things that are on here on their own are not alive. So these things, even though they make up living things, organelles are not alive. They are parts of a cell. They are small cell parts. But now, and I'm going to switch to using green here, because if I use cell, and let's say that number 6, the cell, this is the smallest unit of life, right? This is the smallest unit of life, the smallest thing that is alive. That means, guys, that this is the smallest thing that possesses the biological order, that can evolutionarily adapt, that responds to its environment, that reproduces, that grows, develops, that processes energy or regulates itself. Now, order is definitely something you can see in non-living things like crystalline structures. Chemical bonds are highly ordered, making rings. Things like that are ordered, but see, just because you have order doesn't necessarily mean that you can evolutionarily adapt or respond or reproduce, grow, and develop. But in order to do all those things will create order. So order being a part of life is not the only thing, right? Like I also always tell students that just because I can reproduce doesn't mean I necessarily have to. But if I don't reproduce, it's not that I'm not alive, but I have the ability to. So life has got the ability to do everything. And cells are the first living things that we see. They are the simplest unit of life, surrounded by a phospholipid bilayer, right? They are cells. They are alive. Now, if we were to look at tissues, this is the realm of histology, right? This is where we would study the different types of tissues in the body, like epithelia, connective, muscle, and nervous tissues in the body, or in living isms. And tissues are not something that every living thing has. All living things on this planet, we can say they all have cells, right? We don't know anything that's alive that doesn't make cells, but there's some single-celled organism, and the organism itself stops at the cell. But let's think of the most complex organisms we know, like humans and other animals who are multicellular. We can have tissues. Now, it's also true that not all multicellular animals have true tissues. Let's think of sponges. But we're thinking of more complex things here. So that's the reason why this hierarchy of life is the way that it is. But these are a bunch of cells working together. They have different jobs to do. Now, let's say I take a unique set of tissues and I assemble them together to make the organs in my body, right? Like a stomach. And if I were to look at a stomach, I would see connective tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, epithelial tissues, all present, creating an organ where a group of tissues all works together, right? To create the organ like our stomach, right? Now, the stomach also comes together with things like our small intestine, our liver, our large intestine, our esophagus, and a variety of other organs. And this produces an organ system, right? Now, an animal could theoretically have organs without having true organ systems. There are some animals out there who do have organs, like some flatworms would have like a protonephridia, but they are incapable of producing a full-on urinary system, a full true excretory system. So the organ system, right, like our digestive system, for example, here would be all the organs that work together, right? So it's various organs working together. But then 10, this is where anatomy and physiology stops. This is the organism. Now, what they're usually going to say in anatomy and physiology is a human, right? Or anything, your dog, whatever. Now, case in point, there are single-celled organisms. That's not what I'm trying to say here, that they don't exist. I am also having to accommodate for the most complex organisms out there. If you were, say, a protozoan, a single-celled eukaryote, you would not possess organ systems, organs, or tissues. So, but you are still a single-celled organism, right? So this is why we're kind of putting it that way, right? So an organism. Now let's say that I've got myself in a classroom and I look at all the humans in my classroom. Those group of humans in my classroom, those are a population, right? A group of individuals who are the same organism but all kind of bound together, right? Like all humans in class, right? Now, if I had all humans in class that were in my classroom at the time, it's just the humans. We're not thinking about the bugs who are hiding in the corner, the mouse who might be in the wall. We're not thinking about the bacteria growing on our skin and the demodex mites that live in our eyelashes. We are considering purely, guys, the population of just the humans in that one area. So then in the classroom, we have one population of humans, let's say anatomy and physiology students in this one classroom, and down the hall, majors biology students. Those are two different populations, right? They are the same organism, but these populations have some isolation going on. And that's important later on when you guys get into some things about evolution that you might see as populations being isolated. Now, so that is a bunch of organisms of the same species, right? But number 12, on the other hand, is a community. Now, let's say, guys, that in communities, let's say in my classroom that I've got students, right? But there's bugs, right? There's maybe there's a mouse in there, right? There's some other things in there. There's the bacteria on your skin and everything going on in there, right? These things create our communities. And communities are made up of various interacting populations, and each population is unique. The population of bugs in that room, the population of the mouse, the population of the students, and we're all interacting, right? Now, 13, what we can look at is the ecosystems, right? Ecosystems, this has to do with communities interacting, right? If I take, guys, in an environment like a college, let's think of campus as an ecosystem, right? Now, it's very rare that the science students would interact with the humanities students. You don't want the humanities students to contaminate you with their silly things, right? You are a hard science student, so you spend most of your time in the science buildings, but oops, you've got to go take this class, you've got to go over to the humanities building. Now you've got to mingle with some other populations of students and their communities, right? They may have, instead of a mouse in their walls, they might have a snake, right? And it's very different, kind of different interactions, right? So the ecosystem can be like a campus where each classroom and even each building is its own set of communities with different populations in each classroom, different communities out there, right? And this takes us to the biggest thing we can think of that is dealing with life as we know it right now, and that's the biosphere. This would be Earth. All life on Earth, right? Why is it that we stop here? Why is it that I say that every ecosystem on this planet makes up the biosphere? Is because we don't know for sure scientifically that life exists anywhere else, right? And these hierarchies that we see are a fundamental thing that is studied in all biological classes. These are the kinds of things they might have and on, say, an exam. Now, you notice I've got red is the non-living things and green is the living. So what I want to start off with is think about this. Number one is by far the smallest thing that we can think of that we are dealing with. And number 14 is the biggest thing that we are dealing with. So literally we are going for more simple, right, at 1, to 14, the most complex. And actually, studying the biosphere and ecosystems actually does require more complex mathematics like calculus because there's greater amounts of interactions. And there is this idea out there called emergent properties that comes about because of this. Case in point, if we were to think about, guys, your sodium chloride that I drew here. Sodium, the atom, is a metal that if I put it in water, it will catch on fire, right? Chloride is a poison gas. They use chlorine gas, which isn't exactly chloride, the ion, but chlorine is a gas that is poisonous. They used it in the First World War to kill people. It's a very harmful gas, right? But you put these together, we make table salt, sodium chloride, right? So sodium chloride does not have the same properties of the atoms that make it. H2O, the chemical, does not have the same properties as hydrogen, which is a gas, oxygen, which is a gas. So these are what we call emergent properties. And emergent properties come about when I take one new level of organization. When I move up the line in a new level of organization, what I start doing is I get new emergent properties from that. Like the macromolecules coming together can help create organelles, and these organelles can be used to make cells, right? And we can keep going down this line, gaining new emergent properties with each uptick. And that's very fascinating, guys. So, emergent properties is something I always discuss, but basically, this is it results because I get complexity increase. Think about an emergent property like a bug in a line of code. We don't intend it to be there, but the more that we get, the code gets more complicated, the more interactions there are. Even if the bug was not something we designed to be that way, we didn't really foresee that it would react that way. So, I really hope you guys found this video helpful. There will be some more videos in this series. I want to keep them fairly short, but these are all to help students who are taking their TEAS 5 test. So, please give a comment, a like, and a subscribe. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please let me know if there's anything that you could use. If you have questions, feel free to comment. Let me know. Find me on Facebook on Human Anatomy and Physiology Education. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you. Bye.